Hey folks, I'm Chris and I'm your Commander Mechanic, and welcome to yet another charity roundtable where I am joined by a fantastic panel of guests here to speak everything Duskmourn House of Horror, Magic's latest set. But before we introduce everyone that's out to discuss it today, I want to remind everyone that we are raising donations for the Trevor Project. Hit command donate in chat and make sure to donate in $5 increments. Every $5 increment that you donate will have you entered into a draw to win fantastic prizes at the end of today's roundtable, from commander precons from the set to infinite tokens prize packs. So please, we're raising these donations for a fantastic cause, but we want you to benefit as well. We've got a nice tally up in the top, and as we reach some of these goals, we'll be adding new prizes to the pool too. So please, let's see what we can do for the Trevor Project tonight. Now, of course, I am joined by an amazing panel of guests. I'm very excited to have everyone here. But let's start throwing it around to everyone to have you introduce yourselves. So let's start out with Air Bubbles. Air Bubbles, why don't you tell us who you are, where we can find you, and what's your favorite scary movie?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, hello. I'll start with the easy questions. My name's Ariel. I go by Air Bubbles Cosplay on the internets. You can pretty much find me anywhere under Air Bubbles or Air Bubbles Cosplay. But yeah, I do cosplay and I play Magic. And my favorite scary movie. Oh my gosh. I'm not gonna lie, I don't watch a lot of scary movies, but I definitely was a really big fan of Freddy versus Jason when it was in the movie theater. I don't know why. I really liked it. I also really like the Jeepers Creepers song, so maybe I'm just a Friday the 13th kind of gal. But yeah, I prefer old scary movies, I guess, would be the ones, just the cheesy old ones. Love those so much.
Absolutely. Well, this plane is right at home for those, that's for sure. Anna Margaret, welcome. Why don't you tell us who you are, where we can find you, and what's your favorite scary movie?
Awesome. Hi, I'm Anna Margaret. You can find me everywhere on the internet at It's Anna Margaret. I love to cosplay, create, and talk about my wildly strong opinions on media and different games. I love scary movies, which is something that people often don't expect about me because I also love princesses of the color pink. And so it's strange, but I love scary movies. I think my favorite is probably Bad Samaritan. I think that David Tennant is one of my favorite actors to play villains. And Bad Samaritan was filmed in Portland, where I got my undergrad and master's degree. And I literally love seeing scenes in this very suspenseful, spooky movie that I'm like, I did research there. I know that location. So it's really fun. It's a very spooky movie. The premise is basically like a good Samaritan helps somebody when they see they're in trouble. But what if you chose not to help them? And then you start to regret your decision because they were really in trouble and that was a really bad person. And it's just a phenomenal movie. 10 out of 10 recommend.
Awesome, awesome. Well, welcome. Always happy to have you. And Schmandrew, welcome. Why don't you tell us who you are, where we can find you, and what your favorite scary movie is?
Yeah, so I'm Andrew or Schmandrew Art online. You can see a bunch of my bright, colorful work at conventions, and actually, you'll see me at MagicCon Vegas this year. So I'll have a booth. So the one that's bright and colorful and pink, that's me. You can find me at schmandrewart.com or schmandrewart anywhere else. And then my favorite scary movie, I'm not a big scary movie person either, so mine's a funny one because it's bad, and it's called The Bye Bye Man.
Love it.
It's
Okay.
so bad, but very funny.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, Andrew. And of course, as we talk about these scary movies, I have to send it over to the connoisseur themselves. Chase, welcome once again to our
Hi.
charity roundtable. Why don't you let everybody know who you are, where we can find you, and of all of the scary movies we know you love, what your favorite is?
Yeah, so hi everybody. My name is Chase, also known as Manacurves. You can find me over at Manacurves. I stream commander content, gameplay, deck building, and all the like. I also just started a series about scary movies, explaining the plot of horror movies through magic cards, because sometimes people just can't get past certain practical effects, or maybe movies can be a little bit triggering. And so being able to explain it through a medium that you're familiar with is just a really fun way for me to talk about it. But my favorite horror movie has to be John Carpenter's The Thing. It's one of my favorite of all time. It's an amazing, like kind of whodunit sort of horror movie taking place in Antarctica. There's 12 cast members, and it's just, you can't trust anybody. It's awesome. The practical effects still hold up to this day, and it is probably one of the best horror movies of all time, in my opinion.
Amazing, amazing. Well, welcome to the panel. Happy to have you. And lastly, but not leastly, my persistent co-host for these charity roundtables. It is the one and only Claybee. Clay, why don't you let us know who you are, where we can find you, and what your favorite scary movie is?
Sure. So, hi friends, I'm Claybee. I'm the C&C representative for these. So, every roundtable that we do, you are guaranteed to find at least Chris and I, and then Chris and Andy on the back end helping out and doing things. You can find me here once every couple months when Magic releases a set. And you can find me on Twitter, any social media platform, anything that exists. If you search Claybee, you will find me. It might be a little variation, but you'll find me if you search Claybee. And so it's funny, like similarly to a lot of the people, I'm not a huge scary movie person. But I think, and I don't even know if people would consider it as one, but The Lighthouse with Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson is
Hell yeah.
a film that I love and freaked the fuck out of me. Of just the being in a theater felt like being tortured, and the unreliable narrator and the effects and all the stuff was just wild. And if that doesn't count, then Cabin in the Woods is also, but it's not even, I don't think of it as a scary film. It's just like an ode to scary films.
Right. A very meta scary film, right?
Yeah. Those I love, like the Cornetto films, all of those. I love those, but I don't want to watch the films that they're homaging.
Amazing, amazing. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome. Just because I know I'm going to get asked if I don't say it right now, one of my favorite scary movies is Cujo. That persists with me from my childhood, just because it is in the realm of reality as being scary, being pursued by a giant scary dog. Definitely one that haunted me when I was younger and stays with me to this day. Maybe not the most fantastical scary movie, but definitely one grounded in reality. So we want to jump in and we want to talk about horror in the frame of Magic. So this is our first kind of real homage style horror set. We've had some horror sets and we've had some takes on paranoia and body horror in Magic in the past through the Innistrad sets, but now we get a plane that is dedicated to what is very clearly referencing the 80s and early 90s in terms of horror and horror movies. And by our frames and our setup here, done by the amazing Epos in chat, Andy, member of our crew, we have very clear references in Magic now to things like CRT TVs and VHS tapes and chainsaws and actual real world things. So my first question for everyone is, how do we feel about these kind of relatable real world things being introduced into our fantasy card game? Is this something that is a hit or a miss to you? Chase, why don't we start with you?
I like how you called on me because I had my mouse hovered over the raise hand button, so this is quite great.
Of course.
I know that a lot of people have gripes with it. Personally, I really like it. And putting aside my love for like physical media and stuff aside, I think that it isn't really too far of a stretch to see this kind of technology be featured in Magic. We've had planes that are in the Stone Age with no technology. We have planes that are super advanced with holograms and like floating screens and everything. And what is not a floating screen but like a newer TV? Personally, I think it's really cool, and I like the way that Duskmourn explains it too, about how the people in the house are using remnants of the technology from the previous technologically advanced part of the plane into creating these own little gadgets and stuff. I think it's really cool and I really like it. I think it was a hit in my opinion.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Ariel, what do you think about this aesthetic? Is this something that fits with Magic?
I think so. I think initially, like, could be a shock. Like, I realized when I was thinking about it and I saw these things, I wasn't necessarily surprised. Like, I saw a chainsaw and I was like, well, it fits. Like, I feel like the way that people, like the artists, drew things and made it was very cohesive. So it's like the chainsaw didn't look like, I went to Lowe's and picked it up. Like, it looks like a spooky chainsaw from like
Black
Magic.
and Decker.
Yeah, my Black and Decker chainsaw. So I think it works really well. It was very smooth how everything really blends together. And I'm just obsessed with Tyvar's fanny pack personally. I'd like to personally call out Tyvar's fanny pack.
Oh my
Like,
God, I
let's
hadn't
call back
realized
to the
that.
80s, like straight up. So, and even that, like, Tyvar, the plane he's from, very old school, old style Norse mythological things. It doesn't look weird that he's holding a baseball bat. Like, it goes with the flow, like just the way that it was designed. That was the word I was trying to think of. It was all designed very well.
Right. For me, it's kind of odd seeing these characters that come from, like you said, like a Norse grounded set, not really have any kind of culture shock to seeing these kind of technologies when they move to a new plane. So definitely something that for me, I would love to see just like the adjustment period of some of these characters on a new plane like this.
That is a really good point, actually. I just wanted to say that.
Also, coming in Modern Horizons 4, the equipment Tyvar's fanny pack.
Please.
Andrew, how about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of that kind of, more modern day stuff really fits in the set well. And I'm glad we brought up Tyvar because I feel like one of the rules of thumb when it comes to like designing things too, and having seen, the concept art before, the art actually came out, it very much felt like they were picking characters that like, maybe visually didn't fit like archetypes within horror movies, but personalities did. So like Tyvar, very much like the dumb jock character, like, the Steve in Stranger Things with the baseball bat, like, and I feel like typecasting those characters correctly really made it like pay off, and also like made it so you didn't question the fact that he's got a baseball bat, or like there's TV screens, or we've got so many like 80s references and whatnot throughout Duskmourn.
Fantastic. Yeah, and they mentioned in the official reveal videos that they were following those horror movie tropes for the characters that they chose for this party too. We've got the nerd in Zimone, we've got the jock in Tyvar. So great to see that they did pick and choose from Magic's history of characters to drop into this set. It does really ease us into it for sure. Anna, how do you feel about this aesthetic? How do you feel about this kind of technology being worked into our fantasy card game?
Yeah, I'm a huge science fiction fan and a huge fantasy fan, and I feel like the science fiction and fantasy blend a lot more than I think we sometimes like give them credit to. And I think that really it's like, what is the driving force in the universe? Are they using technology to advance, or are they using magic to advance? And I think in Magic, we already see lots of cultures use technology to advance. Chase mentioned this a little bit with like how there's literal like robots that are a thing, but we also have flying ships. We have all these cool kind of ways that we see technology. And I think it's really fun to picture like, how would this particular moment of technology experience magic in a different way? Or like, I think it's really cool to think about. So I really love it. I'm also like a huge fan of retro futurism. And so a little bit here, it's almost like retro magicism. I don't know. Like, it feels like we have like this kind of retro futurism that we got to see both in Fallout, but then also now in this set. Like, looking at these characters from this kind of like moment in history, we see these beautiful homages to this period, but then also like brought now to the present. So I love it. I think it's really cool also when planeswalkers have, or characters have been to other planes. Like we saw this in Bloomburrow, where we got all of the planeswalkers that became animals when they went to the Bloomsboro plane. And so now we have these other characters that get to sort of experience this world and this flavor and this design here on this plane. And so I think that's fantastic. And I think it was very, very well done. I'm enjoying it a lot.
Awesome. Yeah, I would love to see some supplemental stories of like a Magic character that walks to this plane and then gets like addicted to Saturday morning cartoons or something. Like
Starts playing
see,
N64.
yeah, right. Liliana sitting cross-legged in front of a TV watching Saturday morning cartoons, eating cereal, right? Something straight out of our childhood.
That'd be me if I was a planeswalker.
For real. Walk to Duskmourn just to watch TV, for sure. Clay, how do you feel about seeing this kind of technology, seeing this kind of stuff in our Magic sets, in the setting? Do you think that it fits? Do you think that it blends well?
Yeah, I think just like basically everybody said, I think that like when we have, if we're gonna have Kamigawa Neon Dynasty and other things, right, aesthetically, that this fits, this kind of works. I've also been a long time proponent of like we can have advanced things like Rosewater's like, you know, the long time rule about like we can't have guns portrayed in Magic. Like we made that mistake and showed muskets 25 years ago, but we can't have these things. I just, it doesn't bother me. And the only other thing I wanted to point out was Tyvar having the baseball bat makes perfect sense. He goes to a different plane. What is a bat but a club? Like this club hit thing, like this makes perfect sense.
And with everything at his disposal, the best thing that he can think about is hit thing with stick, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like that's perfect for him.
Yeah, totally in flavor for a character like that. Now, Anna, you brought up Bloomburrow, and we're kind of getting these back-to-back sets that, at least to me, seem like tonal whiplash here, where we get very cutesy animal characters in one set, and then just a couple of months later we're seeing hard horror with ghosts and monsters and near murder depicted in a lot of arts too. Is this something that, like, for the average Magic player, maybe not the enfranchised players that we are, does that really seem like something that's aimed at two different audiences? What does that Venn diagram overlap look at, and what do you think, Anna?
Okay, I think that I love your description of a Venn diagram because I feel like it's really accurate in this situation. Like, I think there's going to be people that love both, that love the cutesy animals, but then also love horror. And like, how cool is it that there's two sets in a row that really draw in that person? But I also think there's a lot of people that those two interests don't overlap. And they are not a fan of both. And I think that that's okay. And I almost kind of like that they're close together because, like, I think that maybe for a younger audience that's into Magic, Bloomburrow is so perfect for them. I think, like, if there's, you know, that's a set that they can feel is really theirs. And if the next set isn't so much yours, it doesn't draw your interest as much, there's always the next set. And so with Foundations kind of coming after, like, I think that we have this kind of cool situation where, like, if Duskmourn's not for you, that's okay. You can still love Bloomburrow. It's like still fantastic, and there's still other sets that you can really like latch on to and love. I love both, so I think for me it doesn't. Maybe it's definitely there's a little bit of tone difference, but I'm like, oh, are they reading my mind? Are we got like Doctor Who? We have cute animals. Like, I feel like Wizards has been secretly reading my interests, but I can see how maybe not everybody would enjoy both. But I don't know if that's a bad thing. I think.
Yeah. And I think that that's totally fair. There's been a long-standing adage in the creation community that not every set can be for everyone, and it really seems like lately they're leaning into that from Wizard side too. Clay, what do you think? Tonal whiplash between Bloomburrow and Duskmourn. Is there a disconnect for you?
I don't think so, just because ever since we moved away from the like block set format, like it kind of like going, you'd have like a Phyrexian set, and then you would have like a writ normal one, right? And then like you'd have something else, and then there'd be a modern set, and then there'd be, and so like I don't think I register it really anymore at this point. I just kind of like, yep, cool. because every set is different. It's a whole unconnected thing for the most part. The style and the art just changes so much that it feels normal, which is weird to say, but
Right on. Andrew, how about you? How do you feel about the kind of whiplash between Bloomburrow and Duskmourn?
So I definitely think there is a bit of that whiplash. I was not super into Bloomburrow, and I think if it hadn't been for having my first Magic cards in Duskmourn, I would not be as excited about Duskmourn either. So this would probably have been like 2 sets in a row that I would have just been like, oh, okay, cool, like I'll check out, but pick up a few cards. But with Duskmourn being the set that it is, I'm definitely going to be getting some stuff. I'm super excited about it. But it's definitely like a little bit of a whiplash, but I think there are definitely a ton of people out there who love both. Like my close play group that I, usually play Magic with once or twice a week, they are all like super excited about Duskmourn, and they were just super excited about Bloomburrow too. Yeah.
Now, from an art standpoint, your specialty here, going from the warm fuzzies on Bloomburrow to like the hardcore horror stuff on Duskmourn, from an art direction standpoint, what do you think about those differences? Very vastly different feels.
Yeah. So one, I think it says so much about the people working at Wizards that are the art directors, because they are able to, art direct artists through very different styles, especially those artists that you see from set after set after set after set. I can't comment on that just because this is my first set. So like I didn't get art direction on anything from Bloomburrow. But I think it's just amazing that, you have so many art directors there that are able to switch and, completely go from, cute furry things, no people whatsoever, to like ridiculous horror, digital like distortion, and horror movie references.
Right on. Yeah, and I believe it was Ovidio Cartagena was art director on Duskmourn.
Not the art director I worked with, but probably.
Gotcha.
I think Ovidio was like the overall, right? Like the big art, like what do they call that, like world building? Like there's like that term above like the individual ADs work with the like individual artists, but then there's the person who's
Gotcha.
because Ovidio also did Ixalan and I can't remember the other one, but yeah, no, every one of Ovidio's sets have been incredible.
Yeah, have been home runs from an art style and art standpoint for sure. Definitely cohesive from top to bottom. So amazing to see. Great work there. Ariel, what do you think about the whiplash between Bloomburrow and Duskmourn? Was there a disconnect in your mind?
I think my first thought is I don't think this would have worked any other time of year. Like, I feel like the moment September hits, everyone's immediately like, it's fall, it's spooky season. If it were up to me, my house would be decorated in Halloween already. I think that's sort of a mindset through a lot of people, regardless whether they're like horror or not. It's like, okay, it's fall now, it's September, it means spooky season. So the quick turnaround was really like, huh, and I still haven't sorted or gone through any of my Bloomburrow cards or anything. And so I'm like, wow, that was fast. But I don't think it would have worked any other time of year. If it happened in like March and then May, I'd be like, wow, it's the same time of year. All right. Spring. But no, you had a nice shift of like Bloomburrow, very summery vibes. And then Duskmourn, it's time for Halloween, everyone. Did you know that? It is, in fact. But also I feel like this set's really catered towards like millennials and elder millennials with the I'm pretty sure if I showed some of these pictures of my nephews, they'd be like, I don't know what that is, Auntie. And I'd be like, I know, it was before your time. So it super hit that note with me too, where I was like, I'm fine with this a huge shift because I just need to consume more content. But I think that's also like a generational thing. But yeah, you also introduced 2 very different things, and if it didn't hit notes with either with a person, like they're probably sitting there feeling a little left out, being like, well, bummer. I didn't want animals, and I didn't want spooky. So, but I wish there was a little more time overall as the TLDR, but I think it fit for the time of year that they did it.
Fantastic. Definitely, it is spooky season for sure, and there are a lot of folks that are looking for this vibe right now. Speaking of, why don't we ask the person that is wearing the open necked necklace right now, which is a fantastic look, Chase. But what did you think about the whiplash between Bloomborough and Duskmourn here? Did it leave you feeling disconnected from either set?
No, so I think like when we think about the distance between Duskmourn and Bloomborough, I think it feels a lot faster to some people because of the tonal difference. But if I'm correct, please tell me if I'm wrong. But I think this was actually the longest time we had in between sets this entire year was between Bloomborough and Duskmourn. We had a whole like 2 months, whereas usually we had like maybe one a month, I want to say, or if not, once every like 5 or 6 weeks. So like it was pretty consistent this entire year. In terms of like, I would agree with what Ariel said about the time of year. I think the reason why they had that wait in between was because, September, like the end of August, beginning of September is when you start to see that shift. So I think that, yeah, that's also a really important reason why they did it. I think for me, the biggest like shocker is just the difference of mechanics and abilities from Bloomborough to Duskmourn. I talked a lot about how Bloomborough is a great entry level set if you're trying to get into Magic, because the mechanics are very basic, they're very simple, they're very easy to digest. They're very good for new players to grok. Typal synergies are really easy. And when you look at Duskmourn, there's a lot of new things or new takes on things, and they're a little bit more complex. They involve, enchantment creatures, and in there that wasn't really the case. In Bloomborough, it was just flat out like, this is creature, you got rabbits, you got mice, you got bats. It was kind of easy to grok. So I think that for me was like the biggest change, was going from a set that to me didn't really do anything for me because of how simplistic it was, to moving to Duskmourn, where it's like, okay, this is more of a challenge to me. This is more complex. That's why I like it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that there's some distinct both audience and mechanic leanings to both sets that set them apart. And if somebody didn't connect with one set, the other set is likely for them, either from a visual standpoint or a mechanical standpoint. There really does seem to be that strong distinction there for sure. All right. Now, before we get into some details about the lore of the set, because I'm interested what everybody thinks about the plane itself. This is our first time on Duskmourn, after all. I do want to remind everybody out there watching that we are still accepting donations for the Trevor Project. Hit Command Donate in chat, and you can find a link to donate. If you donate in $5 increments, you are entered into our draw for prizes at the end of the roundtable as well. We have already raised $170 so far. Thank you, everyone out there. At 250, we will be adding another commander precon from the set into the prize pool as well. So get your donations in. We will have a cutoff closer to the end of the roundtable, so make sure to donate now. Thank you, everyone. All right. So we are on a new plane for the first time here, and it seems like we've been jumping around to new planes a lot lately, but this one is very unique in that the plane itself is the enemy here. It is the horror, it is the lurking evil, and everything that our characters are on in this plane is out to get them. What do we feel about Valgavoth, the big bad, and Duskmourn, that is essentially the weapon Valgavoth is using to terrorize people on this plane? Is this an interesting concept? Is this something that you like? Is this something that you want to see more of? And Andrew, why don't we start with you?
I wish his name was easier to pronounce. Like I get tripped up so much on Valgavoth. Like I have to really
just call him Val.
Val.
That's what his friends call him.
Yeah.
I like that. I think I'll adopt that now, Chase. I think it's really cool And again, unique perspective as an artist, getting a little bit of the lore like way ahead of everybody else and being like, oh, the whole plane is a house. Okay. And every room is like a different like environment. And like, oh, that's really cool and interesting. And I remember spending like at least a solid like 2 hours just going through like the world building guide and PDF and everything and really diving into all of that. And I think it's really interesting and different. And I think too, going from, I think that's one of the reasons why Duskmourn kind of works well is I think if it was like a whole world and it wasn't just a house, I think it would like spiral out of control. Whereas like having it within a house feels a little bit more manageable and also feels like a trope in a horror movie where like every time you open a room, you're in a different, like basically part of a planet. And so I think overall they really just knocked it out of the park, aside from, making his name really difficult to pronounce for me specifically.
Oh, right on. Yeah, the whole doors concept is one that they lean into very heavily in the lore, which is very interesting. And we'll get to talk about that more in a second as well, because there is a great stinger at the end of the lore for this set that is something that I'm very, very interested in. But Ariel, what do you think about Duskmourn as a plane? What do you think about Valgavoth as a big bad?
I think it's cool. I went through a journey when it came to this set because I'm very bad at staying up to date with lore. I think the only time I read the entirety of a lore drop series was just to make sure Chandra didn't die when she was trying to save Nissa. Like literally, I just needed to know Chandra didn't die. And so I read for that sole purpose. And then I did read some of this, but it kind of went like, oh, all right, a haunted set. That's cool. It's in a haunted house. That seems kind of cheesy. Oh, the whole plane is a haunted house. Oh, there's a dude trapped in here. Okay, like that was kind of my journey that I went on. And at least the lore that I read was really cool. And I don't know. I would honestly love to see it in a movie form. Like every time when I was first reading some stuff, like there was like a nice balance between the way like Kaido was talking and the way Tyvar was talking. Because every time Tyvar would talk, you're like, wow, you're ridiculous. But then it fits very good into that trope of a scary movie. And I think it's just different. So I think regardless of whether you love or hate it, it's nice that it's different. Like this house is an entire plane. Like that's different than anything we've ever seen. It's always been like, oh no, we have to save this plane. There's a bad guy. And it's like, no, this house is the entire bad guy. And you're trying to save someone and get out without dying. And I think that's pretty a cool take. And also just like really terrifying thinking like every time you open a door, you don't know where you're going and you don't know how to leave. And yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great point that this is not hey, we have to defeat the big bad here. It's we just have to survive the big bad. Get in, rescue someone, get out. And I think that it would make a great movie. It would make a great video game. A lot of folks in chat are saying that'd be a great tie-in to Betrayal at House on the Hill as well, which is great. And in the reveal, they did have an Omen card that they were handing out to everybody at Gen Con too. So
I had it like on my desk somewhere, but I don't know.
So they did a small tie-in there because that is a Wizards published game too. But it's definitely a concept that lends itself to a lot of really interesting tie-ins as well. Chase, what did you think about the plane? What did you think?
I wanted to add one more thing really quick. Just about Valgavoth specifically, is I like that he's really drawn differently in almost every different art. Like he's very consistent, but he's drawn very different, which I think goes very well with like a nightmare. Mm-hmm. Like nightmarish enemies change depending on who you are. And I think that was really well executed. Yeah, whatever, grammar.
It's very much one of those appearance shifts based on the eye of the beholder, right? Really speaks to the fears of the person observing it, which it's very interesting as a concept. So Chase, what did you think about Duskmourn as a plane, the concept of Valgavoth as the big bad?
So I have like 3 key thoughts. First of all, Ariel, I'm so glad you mentioned that you want to see it in a movie because I have one for you. That's basically this. So first of all, I really like this plane that the plane itself is an entity. It kind of reminds me a little bit about Shadowmoor in terms of the shift of the plane, in terms of it like turning from good to sort of evil and dark, you know, kind of on like a whim. I think it has like that same energy and flavor to it that I really like. Um when I was kind of, dicking around online, I like to listen to SCP videos because I'm a well-adjusted person, and I just realized that the entire plot of Duskmourn is basically the infinite IKEA SCP, but
Yes.
with a demon, and I can't unsee that. It kind of kills me, but I at first when I saw Valgavoth, like the art, like that key art that his regular art is, it looked really familiar to me, and I couldn't figure out why. And then earlier you said movie, and then I remembered. So there's a movie that was released in 1999. It's called The House on Haunted Hill. It's a remake of an old black and white movie. But the 1999 House on Haunted Hill is pretty much this like hotel sanitarium type situation that is there's like a dinner party there, but it turns out to be, ghosts killing people. But there's this entity in there called the Darkness. Um and the Darkness looks exactly like Valgavoth. The Darkness is this entity that's basically an ever morphing Rorschach painting that absorbs and takes people in and haunts different parts of the house. Um, it's phenomenal. It's called The House on Haunted Hill. It's a phenomenal 1999 movie, but I really think like the key inspiration from this set, I would love to talk to the person in charge of world building because it feels so like similar, and I can't talk about it enough. But the fact that you turn the entire world into something that's supposed to harm you, I think is incredibly interesting and incredibly unique. It's a different kind of jump from what we've experienced with Magic Planes. I like that the change in circumstances with the Omen Path also changes the way that the plane interacts with the survivors, because the plane doesn't need the survivors anymore because it has the Omen Path.
Mhm.
So it's this even greater life or death situation that I just find really fascinating. Um, and I just think it's super cool. I love it. And if y'all haven't checked out House on Haunted Hill 1999, can't recommend it enough. Uh, you know, awesome homage to horror lovers. I'll stop talking now.
Amazing. All fantastic insights, great movie recommendations. One of the reasons why we wanted to make sure that you were here. Clay, what do you think about Duskmourn as a plane? What do you think of Valgavoth as a big bad here?
Super cool, super cool. I'm a big fan of Algavoth. I think that the concept of like as a big bad doing something very different from the last couple big bads that we've had, which have been very like physical material, right? Like if you think about like the like Elishnor and Shieldred, or if you even think about like Nicol Bolas and stuff, right? Like there are these very concrete entities, and I think like Ariel pointed out, one of the coolest things about Valgavoth is the like ever shifting nature of the big bad. Like we don't know what the big bad, you know what I mean? Like that can change. Living plane as a concept that I always love in any kind of media, honestly, not even just scary stuff. Like it, like even in show and anime, like, you know, you go into this place, then all of a sudden they realize that the enemy or something is controlling everything around them. Always cool. Love it.
Yeah, I think I saw it compared to that. Duskmourn is basically Valgavoth's domain expansion.
Also, yeah, that's a much better
Yep.
like explanation of what the point I was trying to make. Thank you.
And Anna, what do you think about Duskmourn? What do you think of Valgavoth as a big bad?
I really like Falcovoth. I also like, as we're talking about the plane kind of being the enemy itself, I kept thinking of legendary layer actions, like layer actions if you're playing D&D. Like if you have a big enough villain, they start to get layer actions that they can do out of the turn cycle. So it feels a bit like, I don't know, it feels like that's a kind of cool thing. Something I think is really fun is I love thinking about where our idea of like a plane comes from. And so, I mean, like, if you think even people discussing like many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, like, we don't really know. And so I think that like this concept of a plane being alive, or the whole plane is a house, like, I love it. Like, why is every plane a world? Why, or why is, I think that's an interesting thing to think about too, then when you're thinking of the science of magic, like, what is a plane? Like, are all of them habitable? Like, I think it's interesting and it's cool and it's fun to think about.
Definitely.
I kind of tying into what both Ariel and everybody here is and Chase like have said about this is there's something truly haunting about not having a safe space in a situation. Like, it takes you back to like Minecraft, where like you can't sleep here. It's like there's enemies. It's not safe. Like, and yet if that is the whole situation, the whole place is not safe. That adds a very different tone and a very different like feeling to their escape plan. And so I really like it. I think it's haunting. I'm also terrified of birds and moths. And so the idea of it being a giant moth, just like, yeah, it's scary already. Just take a small moth that's scary, make it even more terrifying. What? You mean it's molting in the basement? Like 0 out of 10. I don't want to be down there. So like I think it's a very well done villain. I don't think a villain needs to be like, I think it's also like, doesn't need to have a crazy sword or something to be truly terrifying. It can just be this haunting entity. And so it's very well done.
Yeah, I like that concept a lot, that the weapon that Valgavoth wields isn't a weapon. It's not magic. It's not an army. It is the plane itself. It is the house that envelops everyone. And that is definitely a spooky concept. Clay, you mentioned that you had one more thing to add about the lore.
Oh, basically, it doesn't really get bigger than what I put in the chat comment. But when I think Chase was talking, or maybe somebody was talking about like the survivors and stuff, and how now, because of the omen paths, like Duskmourn stuff's doesn't solely rely on the survivors for like targets and stuff, right? And so the fact that they're able to just like pluck people through the omen paths from these different planes and stuff, one, creates the opportunity for some really cool like and weird crossovers that like we've in previous roundtables we've talked about omen paths setting up these, but then also like it really gave me this vibe of how a long time ago Memnarch, right, like in trying to do things was like plucking people, and that's how we got the survivors, the rebels on New Phyrexia from Mirrodin and all that. So that was like, I don't think that was an intentional callback, but it's a cool kind of like story archetypes echoing each other as you go back. I think that's a cool thing.
Yeah, and you hit my point on the head right there, Clay. The fact that they left the lore being this boogeyman tale to be told across the multiverse of don't open doors that you don't know where they lead to, or watch out for doors appearing where you don't expect them. It's turned this horror plane into one of those like Bloody Mary kind of Candyman style stories of like hide your kids kind of thing. You warn the children not to use these doors, or Duskmourn's going to get you. Chase.
There's also some really cool, like, sort of like, I guess you could call it like, I don't remember what it's called. It's like lo-fi horror. That's not the term for it, but it's like VHS tape horror, but on YouTube. And there's one that's kind of popular about the stairs in the forest. It's like stairs that are just randomly appearing in the forest that go to nowhere. They just appear randomly. No one knows why they're there. Analog horror. Someone in chat said it. Bless you. Where like just random staircases appear in the forest, and people say if you see a staircase, ignore it. If it goes to nowhere in the forest, don't go on it. And some people will go on it and they'll just disappear, and you don't know what happens to them or where they'll go. And it also just kind of has that interesting vibe of turning something very, mundane and very common that we use every day, that people in other planes use every day, and they turn it into like this thing that you should be fearful of, which is also kind of nifty.
Yeah. There's also the stories of like fey circles in traditional fantasy elements as well, of these circles of mushrooms out in the woods, and if you step into them you disappear, you're stolen by the fey kind of thing. And this is one of those, you open a door in the wrong alley and Duskmourn has you and it's not letting you go. I think that's a very interesting concept to set up as just this thing running in the background for the next couple of sets. And, every once in a while you see a card depict someone getting sucked up by a door somewhere and being taken by Duskmourn. I think that
it's going to be that unlucky planeswalker.
right. Yeah.
It's just going to be him.
Game theory. What happened to all those people in the Journey to Nowhere cards? They went to Duskmourn.
Right. And that would be a perfect card to reprint as a special guest in a set of just showing someone opening a door and being sucked into Duskmourn, right? Like I think that that's a really interesting concept lore wise that has roots in a far-reaching capacity here.
I don't think it's a good story to explore, but I really like the mental picture of omen paths going in and out of Duskmourn, right? But then one day a sliver goes in, or
it's just alien at that point.
And then but then that's well, what is
oh my god,
fear? It's just I don't feel fear. I'm immune to this, but this place is awesome, and just starts going. The implications of other things getting in there, and then it's oh, the killers are so scary, but if they saw the Eldrazi or Phyrexian mutated things, who blinks first if you get the horror?
It's just Emrakul, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's just Emrakul.
I just imagine one of those ridiculous creatures from Duskmourn that has the over the top saw arms or no actual hands, it's just blades, and then Emrakul shows up and it just runs creepily down the hallway.
Or somebody from
just swats it away.
Somebody from Innistrad gets grabbed and they're just
this is great. This is a vacation for me.
Yeah. Child's play.
Well, it's funny because Magic already has a lot of references to some classic horror icons as well, with slivers being xenomorphs, the Phyrexians being the Cenobites, and the Eldrazi being eldritch horrors. It would be interesting to see how they interact with spooky guy in a hallway. That is the scariest thing on Duskmourn right now, right? Werewolves and vampires exist on other planes where it's a guy with a knife on Duskmourn is the scariest thing that you're going to encounter.
That's the scariest thing in real life. So I put me on Innistrad.
Who would win, an extra dimensional giant deity like Emrakul or a really, really big moth?
Hey, you can tragic slip Emrakul, okay?
Bloomburrow followed by Duskmourn is just the Magic equivalent of bear or man.
Yeah. Planeswalker versus nature versus Planeswalker versus technology, right? That's kind of what we're getting here.
Yeah.
Big bads on Duskmourn or on Bloomburrow are a big owl or a big leopard, and big bads on Duskmourn are extra dimensional plane trying to eat you. Chase.
I will say, it's really kind of cool to see this kind of horror explored because Magic has always had its roots in horror. Innistrad being a very good example, but I like to differentiate. Innistrad is very much gothic horror in the sense that pretty much all of the classic old school universal monsters. So you have Frankenstein and the Wolfman and Dracula and Creature from the Black Lagoon. Those are all explored through Innistrad, which is so really cool. So to see kind of Duskmourn, take a departure from that more, I guess, Magic friendly version of horror, which is kind of that fantasy aspect, and kind of going towards more here's a crazy dude with a chainsaw, or you're afraid of your teeth falling out. Here's a being that manifests that. It's an interesting way to kind of see that departure from that because of how schlocky people like to view gothic horror, and it's really not. And Innistrad, I think, did a really good job of turning that into something terrifying. And so now people think nowadays 80s horror is kind of schlocky, which it isn't. But when you see it in Duskmourn, it's this very real, very terrifying, really interesting thing.
Yeah. And we've got Fear of Lost Teeth up on screen right now.
That is a piece of art that just makes me go I love it because it makes me feel so but I hate it.
That's literally why I was raising my hand, because like I think it's like they previewed some of the fears at PAX West, like when they were showing some of these fears, and honestly, tying into exactly what Chase is saying, I think that what's really cool about this plane is giving these abstract fears physical manifestation, and it's scary enough to confront it in your own head, but confronting that fear in front of you, I don't know, I think it's very well done. And they described too that it was like all the people being dragged along with the fears are people experiencing that same nightmare. And then so it's like almost, I don't know, if I just think that's terrifying. And as somebody who had reconstructive jaw surgery, this card I saw it and was like, oh, 10 out of 10, no.
Yeah, they did a great job
everything.
picking these fears too,
Yeah.
because some of the fears in this set are like, well, that's my recurring nightmare right there.
Yeah.
That I have had that dream before, and the
You're
arts
writing
are
on that
all
fear.
yeah.
You're one of the souls.
Exactly. But here's fear of failed tests. There's the fear of sleep paralysis as well. Like those are all real, relatable things too, and they're all fantastic to see in this set because those things scare me a lot more than some of the more horror-oriented tropes, the actual real nightmares and dreams here. But I see these fear cards, these nightmare cards, a lot like the inverse to Kami on Kamigawa,
Mm.
where those are spirits of good things. So you have Kami of flowers, and you have Kami of hopes and things like that. Versus here we have the fears, and they're the manifestations of dread and nightmares. So it's interesting how those two parallel each other, especially considering Kaito from Kamigawa has crossed over here into Duskmourn too. All right. Before we move on to talking about some of the mechanics in the set and the way some of these cards work, I do want to say that we have passed our first goal for donations. We are up to $275.69. Nice. Raised so far. Our next goal is 350 before we add another Commander Precon to the pool. So do donate in $5 increments, and we will try and hit that next goal before we do our draw at the end of today's session. All right. So we want to speak now about how some of these cards work. And specifically, we had mentioned earlier how we've got kind of a bit of a switch from more simplified mechanics in Bloomborough to more complicated ones now in Duskmourn. And Duskmourn really does seem to have quite a few mechanics to it. The marquee one, it seems to be, is Manifest Dread, which is yet another face down mechanic being introduced to the game. Just earlier this year in Murders at Karlov Manor, we had two new face down mechanics introduced in Disguise and Cloak, and now we got Manifest Dread. Is this going to the well too many times for everyone? Are things starting to get confusing as to what a face down permanent is? Chase, why don't we start with you?
I would say things are only getting confusing in the sense that the way cards are designed has been changing a lot. Things used to be a lot more simplistic with designs, and over time, of course, things have to get more and more complex. So, of course, things are going to have to be tackled at a new angle. In terms of like the concept of like face down cards, I was actually the concept of like cloak and disguise kind of confused me originally during that set for like what was it, like Karlov Manor. It did kind of like confuse me a little bit. Um when you say Manifest Dread, all I hear is manifest. I know what that does, and I'm pretty chill with it. So to tack on kind of like a newer thing feels pretty chill and easy to me. Um I I'm not a fan of like doing face down themes in Commander, but I like that we're getting more of it because that means you have more commanders to choose from than like Kadena.
Mhm.
So like I'm okay with like giving people variety with that kind of stuff. I think it's interesting. I think it's flavorful. Um I'm not like painfully confused by it. So all in all, I'm like pretty just like flat on it.
Pretty neutral on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting that we got takes on Morph in Disguise and Manifest in Cloak, and then we get something that is kind of a new take on that, but not, in some people's opinion, not quite as good. This is the card advantage version of it, as opposed to the version with Ward from Markov Manor. So it just seems odd to me, at least, to iterate on this mechanic so soon after we just had another iteration, especially to call it something different as well. Anna, how do you feel about yet another face down mechanic being introduced?
So this is where I think I have to admit that I've only played Magic for about 3 years. And so since I've only played Magic for about 3 years, I have loved every time a mechanic has come back, because it encourages me to go look at a bunch of new cards that I maybe haven't looked at. And I think that, like, I'd never really played with face down cards, honestly, until the Doctor Who set, where there's that cybernetic conversion card where you flip a card over and it becomes a Cyberman. And I was like, oh, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Oh my gosh, what if your commander's converted? It just felt so thematic to the set. It felt like such this, like, because being converted into a Cyberman is terrifying. Honestly, it's something I fear after watching Doctor Who. You're like, that is the scariest thing I can imagine. And so for me, it was like horrifying. And so when Murders at Karlov Manor came out, I was like, oh, cool, more face down things. So that when I saw now Duskmourn, I liked it because I was like, fun. All those face down things I read and I did with Murders at Karlov Manor, maybe they have a home now too here. Maybe these are some new cards. I like to think about my commander deck sometimes as projects. And I like to look at new sets and be like, what cards in this set could be swapped in to my decks? What would make them cool? What would make them fun? So I kind of like the repeating of mechanics with different new flavors, because I think it's fun to find those few cards and be like, that would fit in my this deck. Or like, oh, cool, I can play this here, but it's thematic to the story as well. So I think that, like, that's how I view it. And honestly, like, maybe I'm going crazy, but Murders at Karlov Manor, I think that was, I don't remember how many sets ago that was, but I think that, like, if you're new and getting into Magic, if you started there and you're like, oh, I like the spooky, like, murder mystery vibes, and now this is a really spooky set, I think it's kind of fun. Like, oh, cool, I get this mechanic again. But I could imagine if you've played a lot longer than I have and you've seen these mechanics kind of tumble through more, or you're more familiar with the original, it might not feel that way. But for me, I think it's exciting and it's fun. And I'm like, oh, cool, I get to see this again. I sort of vaguely know how that works. It's easier to pick up on.
I think that that's a really interesting point right there, too, is that the Murders at Karlov Manor set and the Duskmourn set, both spooky themed sets, both have face down mechanics to them as well. So they kind of go hand in hand, despite being, 3 sets apart at this point? 4 sets apart at this point?
Is there only 3 or 4 sets apart?
Yes.
I need to do some Googling.
Yeah, for real. So it can seem like years ago, but Murders was earlier this year, so it's been a while. Andrew, how do you feel about yet another face down mechanic in the game?
I think I land about where Chase is, where it's like Manifest Dread makes sense to me, given, Duskmourn, whereas like Cloak and Disguise were a little weird to me, because I got really excited about the Murders at Karlov Manor face down deck, the Duskana one with the bear. And I tried playing it like maybe 6-7 times with my like usual play group. And I felt like I never really totally enjoyed it. Like there would be like these moments where I'd be like, oh, I'm like right on the cusp of really enjoying this mechanic and these mechanics. But I think for me, and this is going to sound really silly, the thing that broke it for me was having to rifle through the different types of tokens to then put the right token out and be like, which one is this? Oh, it's this one. Okay, which one is this one? Oh, it's that one. And I'd always get them mixed up, and it was always like, took me longer than I wanted to find those. And so for me, it was kind of a user experience thing where like, I feel like if they had just come up with like a more like not simplistic, more like elegant way of like connecting all of them. Cause I feel like Chase said, Manifest Dread is like, oh, manifest it. Very easy to connect that. Oh, it's got the graveyard involved. Oh, that makes sense. Like
Mhm.
it's very intuitive. And so for me, like something like that would be easy. And also too, like, I'm guessing you could probably just use the regular manifest tokens. Like there might be special manifest dread tokens, but like you wouldn't have to be like, which one is this? The one that has ward? Is this the other one? Like, is this the regular morph? I'm an old man. I don't know.
Does this one have ward? Is there a difference between manifest and manifested dread? Yeah, I get it. Ariel, what do you think about another new face down mechanic being introduced?
I won't lie. I have been playing Magic a while now, which horrified me when I did the math. But I've literally usually just avoided it. Not for any particular reason. I'm just very lazy. Like that's straight up, I'm just lazy. So I've seen a lot of other people do it and it looks like fun. I'm just lazy. I do like it because I think it fits with the theme. I think regardless of your feelings about it, you can at least agree that Manifest Dread makes complete sense for a horror set. So like when I read it, I think I immediately connected the dots of what it was for. And even if I didn't, I was kind of like, well, that's cool. Like it was just a completely new thing to me, even though it had the word manifest in it. It was Manifest Dread. And I was like, okay, that's terrifying. And I know exactly how that feels. And I don't know if you've seen the token for it, but this is, I have one of the tokens right here. This is a manifest token. And I can feel this token. Like I can feel being terrified right now. So
like the human brain can sometimes like what we picture is sometimes scarier than what's there. And so I think I love that.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the weirdo that says that token art actually makes me laugh because it looks like the meme. You know that meme where it's me and the boys at 3 a.m. looking for beans and it's like shadow people in a hallway? That's the same image almost perfectly. And somebody photoshopped that because I'm too lazy. But
I need this
yeah,
modified
we just
now,
need
please.
we need to just make that a manifest
Put it
dread
up.
token.
Me and the boys at 3 a.m. looking for beans. And
Somebody
it
make
killed
that,
me.
give it to Chase at the next Magic Con.
Oh, that's
Please
great.
do.
I need it.
Oh my god. No,
See,
I think
to
that'd
me,
be great.
that manifest token screams more "Mom, I threw up" than anything else.
Mom, I threw up.
Yeah, kid standing in the doorway. Mom,
Oh my
I
God.
threw up.
That now makes me think of
My turn to play the X-Men.
but that also makes me think of my
Shadow is like creepy.
Oh my
yeah
God.
my
It's the doorway with the teeth that's creepiest to me.
yes doors with teeth. Just no.
Doorways are not supposed to have teeth. I don't know if you know this, but they're not supposed to have teeth.
All right, Clay, what do you think about yet another face down mechanic?
So if I had gone first, I would have had a very different answer than I do now. Because I was going to be just like, cards are supposed to be face up. There's a front and a back, and I don't think that this should be face
You can
down.
only tap your lands one way.
Like,
You can't.
This is like such a weird molehill to stand on, but like this is how I feel. But then listening, I am like, okay. I'm like walking it back, and then like because I have not. So I, was playing with like when the like, is it Tarkir, right, with like the morph, and then so like I've seen face down mechanics for 10 years now, whatever, but I've never really played with them. I've never really been interested in them, and like I don't know if it's necessarily from a complexity standpoint, but because of the fact that a lot of them are kind of isolated. So that playing mostly Commander, a lot of times, like Chase mentioned, there's not a lot of support for that. And so I think that like getting more different, even if they're different kinds of face down, you get more options to be able to interact with the mechanic of turning cards face up, first down, and getting different kinds of values, and like seeing what a deck that can actually leverage all of that look like could be really cool. And I'm also actually kind of motivated to try to do it now because I like making difficult to operate decks, and the comments about it being hard is kind of motivating me to be like, I could do it. I could handle that. I could keep track of all the moving pieces. I probably couldn't, but I want to do it now.
Anna?
something that's really interesting about, like, I love your comment that Magic cards have a front and a back and they should be face up. But it's funny how much flipping cards plays a role in other card games. Like, if you think about even like there's other TCGs where a huge mechanic is flipping your cards to indicate that you've used this once per game unless flipped back resource. And so that's something that we see in other card games. And so I appreciate when mechanics that work in other games I appreciate making those connections. So I totally laughed when you said that, because I literally was just competing in a different card game tournament last weekend where a huge portion of it's flipping cards. So yeah, I looked at the backs a lot.
That makes sense why I only play Magic, because I don't want to do that.
Right.
Like, nope.
Even a game like Yu-Gi-Oh, a big part of it is, I'll place this card face down.
Yeah,
Right.
activating my trap card, dude.
Yeah.
Flipping that up.
Like,
All right,
Mirror
middle
Force.
school me was a big fan of trap cards. I will own up to that. I did a lot of that.
Oh, okay.
I mean, nothing
That's
feels better
what I
than
do.
pulling up a Mirror Force when they're attacking you.
Welcome, Raiders, by the way, for everybody new joining us. Welcome to the round table. We are going to be raising donations tonight for the Trevor Project. If you donate, hit Command Donate in chat and donate in $5 increments. You will be entered into a draw that we're going to have later tonight for some great prizes like Infinite Token prize packs and Commander decks from Duskmourn. So we are just now talking about some of the mechanics from Duskmourn, and we were just speaking about manifesting dread, but there are several other new mechanics in the set, like delirium, like rooms, like survival, like eerie. So it seems like we're getting a lot of new mechanics that we might only see in this set alone, judging by what we've seen from other mechanics from other sets. Are there any new mechanics, specifically rooms, survival, or eerie, or impending, which we see on just a handful of cards in the set, that you'd like to see come back at some point? Do you think that some of these would make sense in other sets or on other planes? Yeah. Clay, what do you think?
Yes, absolutely. So jokes aside about what I said about like Manifest Dread and stuff, Eerie is like enchantments are my 1A, 1B favorite permanent type in the game. I love enchantments. I love enchantress decks. I've built enchantress flavor decks in almost every color combination, even ones that aren't supposed to do enchantment things. The set also gives us two different ways to go infinite with Eerie, just different two card combinations. And there's a bunch of other stuff that you can do outside of Duskmourn with Eerie, which I think is super cool. Rooms, I think, I haven't got to play with them yet, but I think they are really, really neat. And I love options. I love having choices. I love making one choice and then getting a second choice later in the game when I'm at a different point in the game like phase. So like I think that's super cool. The other stuff is more or less fine. It doesn't speak to me, but I don't feel like I would hate sitting against it or seeing it, which is kind of my benchmark for most mechanics, is if I'm sitting across somebody at a pre-release and it's not a fun experience while they try to either navigate the mechanic or dumpster me with the mechanic. That I'm just like, okay, cool. These are fine. They're for other players. They're not for me.
Right. Andrew, what do you think? Any of the favorite new mechanics in the set? Any ones that you want to see return or fleshed out a bit more?
I just was writing some little notes so I wouldn't forget what I thought about the different mechanics. I feel like impending would be really cool with like a suspend style like mechanic or set, because it's like, like I think of like Shivan Meteor. It's like that's impending doom. Like, come on. So a mechanic like impending, I feel like for something like that would work well. Or like in a time-based set, I feel like it would work really well. And And then I also had a revelation as to why Constellation is Constellation, because I was going to say that Eerie was better than Constellation because it made more sense to me. And then in my head, I was like, oh, it's because as you get more enchantments and you have more stars, you connect the dots and you make a constellation. So I don't believe Eerie is better than Constellation anymore. I think they're both just nice in the way that they are. And then rooms, I really like rooms. I'm really I'm interested to see how it works out. I can't wait for the really silly like rooms decks that get made. Because you're gonna have ones that are like, oh, it's liminal spaces, and it's like, or like, oh, let's do panic rooms, so it's like adventures and rooms.
Love that.
Or you could even pick a character and be like, what would their house look like? So you have like a demon or a dragon, and you're like, well, this is their house now, and they have a locker room. I love the possibilities of rooms. I think it's really silly. And I think too, it's a mechanic that isn't easy to apply to future sets. So it's not like super pigeonholed here. So if it ends up being a really popular mechanic, it's one that they can very easily adapt to other worlds, because every place has rooms, just in different, makes and models.
Absolutely.
Oh my God, I'm going to give Ovika some rooms.
Chase, your thoughts?
I would like somebody to make a deck with 2 partners. The theme is rooms. I want you to call it Property Brothers. Somebody do this. I don't.
One of them has to be Bruce Tarl.
What is it? What is it, brothers?
Can you do Bruce Tarl and like Crown or something and call it Property Brothers, please? Putting that out there. It's going to be a new CDH deck and it's going to sweep the nation.
So good.
But I like, just to be super serious, I like the concept of rooms a lot. I think it's really cool. We've seen split cards a million times before. So to see this fresh take on it is something that I really appreciate. I like that you can't cast both at the same time. I like that you have to kind of pick and choose. I like that you can lock and unlock, in, out, in, out. I just think it's really nifty. I like the mechanic a lot. It just feels really it feels really chill. I really like the energy of it. I like I think it was like survival mechanic. I think that's really cool. I feel like that's a mechanic you can implement in literally any set. Magic is not a peaceful story. So there's always going to be survivors of something. So I think introducing survival, I think is really cool. I like Eerie. I think honestly, in terms of mechanics, I think the set is doing a pretty good job at creating new stuff, doing takes on old stuff, and I dig. It gets the Chase stamp of approval.
And that is a highly sought after honor, let me tell you.
Yeah, I know. That's only reserved for really good mechanics and a Wendy's 4 for 4.
Okay, Anna, what do you think about the mechanics in the set? Any favorites? Any that you want to see return?
So I actually really agree with Clay. I agree with them because I just love enchantments. I love the idea of a permanent that sticks around that's not a character that can't defend you, and I find them so interesting and fun. And I love Constellation, and so I really like all of the enchantment support, and also kind of the different way they approach them. I think rooms are probably my favorite thing from the set, and the artwork on some of these rooms has just been incredible. I'm forgetting the name, but it's the doll house.
Ooh, that one's stunning. The alt art to that is beautiful.
It's full beautiful. Art, it's so evocative. I think it's maybe my favorite of the cards I've seen so far. I'm obsessed with it. And I also really appreciate the types of cards that fit well into a deck, both in the early game and in the late game. And I think rooms, the one on the screen, these room cards are so pretty.
I just love the colors on that one.
That makes me think of Dr. Pepper.
What is it called? The Doll Maker's Shop? Yeah, the Doll Maker's Shop. Oh my gosh. It's so pretty. It's pink and purple and all my favorite things. But then more than that, kind of back to what Clay was saying too, it gives these types of cards work early in the game with their lower cost, but as well as later in the game. And you have flexibility too for unlocking the room and kind of going through them. And so I think that they're really really interesting and they're fun, and I can see them being like cool pieces to put in commander decks. Or even there's that 5-color commander, the one who opened up the plane.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she's super cool, and I think that I've been flirting with making a rooms deck because I'm like, this is just the coolest thing. They're so neat. So I think that mechanic, I'm like, I want this back in every set. Give me all the rooms. Let me feel like I'm exploring the plane with rooms. I hope we get more.
I like that Marina Vrendrel, that 5-color commander. The fact that she's the only thing that lets you relock a room and use these, like, that's super cool. That's something that I wouldn't expect to be in the base set like this. That's something that I'd expect to be. Yeah, look, see?
I built her.
Can you blink a room and get it to reset?
If you blink a room, both doors are locked. You have to recast.
Okay, so you have to redo both. Okay, so
Yeah,
you can like blink your opponent's rooms.
Ooh.
To shut them off.
And make them have to pay more mana. That's not a bad strategy.
I don't know.
Heard it here first.
Just like, oh, actually, all your progress is lost.
It's a really interesting interaction.
Rewinding the tape.
Yeah. Right. So they I think were a little confused about how that worked at first. They came out with some rulings about copying or blinking, where you can choose what side comes in unlocked. But then they decided on the ruling that if you don't pay for a room as it enters, both doors are locked. So you have to end up paying for one or the other, which, again, very interesting interaction here. So I like it a lot. I think the rooms are very interesting too. But Ariel, what do you think about the mechanics? Any favorites? Any you want to see return?
Well, I just built an enchantress deck, so I'm super excited about enchantments. I think I just about squealed about everything. I'll probably only put glimmer in it because everything's cute in my deck, so it has to be cute. But I love anything of enchantments. One of the first sets I learned to play Magic in was technically the end of Gatecrash, but my first like real thing was the first block of Theros, which is a lot of enchantments. So it is like one of my favorite mechanics in Magic is that. So seeing it come back and just have this really nice playful piece to it is really fun. And a really great piece of the story as well. And rooms, I like them too. I don't play a lot of like two-sided cards because I'm lazy. But I'm pretty excited to give it a shot. And I like how they come out and they stay there and then you can, lock and unlock them. Like they're really versatile, which is really cool because I feel like sometimes you have to like pick and choose what you want to play when it comes to cards that are split like that. But yeah, and then I totally had a point and I forgot. I do think you can absolutely shift to like use a lot of these in the future. Like someone else had said, there's rooms everywhere. But even some of these rooms, while they are inside, they look like they're outside. Like there's like underwater tunnel and slimy aquarium. The art looks very outside. So you could absolutely translate that to another plane and it can be outside and work really well. And then, of course, like survival, I mean, most every set is about surviving. So you could put that in anywhere. And I'm kind of excited to see where it goes. And I hope they continue using these really cool tools.
Definitely. I would love to see survival come back on a vehicle-heavy plane, too. That is something that gives you ways to tap your creatures.
Just like Mad Max, just like cars crashing.
Considering we've got our Death Race set coming up next year, I think that that's a very interesting pairing of mechanics, survival here in Duskmourn, and then no doubt vehicles coming up in that set. And I'm a huge fan of rooms too, especially because a lot of the rooms really seem to be very strong effects. And anytime that you can include one card in your deck that is two very strong effects is fantastic, and it's great from a deck building standpoint. A lot of these are redundancy too. Walk-in closet on screen right now, yet another way to play cards, land cards from your graveyard. So if you've got a deck that's about that, this is a shoe-in for it. And then it also has a very, very strong Yawgmoth's Will style effect stapled to it. And I believe our own Chase previewed this card too.
Yes, I did. It's super, super gnarly, honestly. I vibe with it. If I played green, it would go in there like hardcore.
Yeah. And even the white one, the prop room one, is the drum bellower effect on an enchantment, which again, very strong effect on tapping all your creatures on everyone else's turns. Again, all of these rooms seem like they are very useful, go in a lot of decks, and can have some great places. I'd love to see them come up in other sets too. They can fit in any setting. Ariel.
I just had to add this part because I totally forgot when I think Schmandrew, you're talking about like infinite combos with rooms. It made me for some reason think of the ridiculous Mazes End deck that people used to play. My husband played it in the standard tournament, and people would just straight up be like, "What?" And like he would lose, but they wanted him to win. They were like, I actually would like you to win. And so I just want to see something where somebody just tries to play every room, or just like be like, my goal is to get 10 rooms out, or just something crazy. I want to see this.
We love an underdog.
This is exactly the kind of Magic that I play and strive for.
Yes.
Well-
Well, then you'd love my shirtless folks deck as well.
For us having a
So
Clue themed set earlier this year, it's really interesting that rooms are coming in this set rather than Murders at Karlov Manor, because that's a set that's all about rooms, or that's a theme that's all about rooms too. So combining the two, Murders at Karlov Manor and Duskmourn, would be a great way to do a Clue themed deck that's all around murder weapons and rooms and all
They
of those
actually
kind of stuff.
Two cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, that's so
Colonel
good.
Buster,
Yeah.
Plum.
Colonel
Exactly.
Mustard with a chainsaw in the dollhouse.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Liliana with Tyvar's baseball bat in the prop room, right?
I love
Like,
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Introduce more blunt force objects into Magic.
Hell yeah.
Oh, okay. So we're going to switch gears and we're going to talk art in the set in a second. So what your favorite arts are, what you think of the frame treatments as well. But before we do, I want to remind all of the fantastic viewers out there watching that we are still accepting donations for the Trevor Project. For tonight, hit command donate in chat and donate in $5 increments to be entered into a draw for prizes at the end of tonight's roundtable. We are at $275.69. Nice. For the night so far, if we hit $350, we will be adding another Commander Precon to the drawing. So do get that in. Additionally, we will be doing Q&A at the end of tonight's session too. So if you have questions for the panelists here, there is a point redemption for a single point in chat to highlight your message. Please enter any questions that you have, highlight your message so that our producer Chris can feed us all of these questions come the end of tonight's session. Just like that. Great example in chat. Thank you very much. All right, so let's talk art in the set. You know, we've got a very unique instance here. We have an actual artist from the set able to join us tonight too. But I want to ask everybody what some of your favorite arts from the set are. Any standouts for you? I know we were gushing about rooms earlier, but any specific cards that anyone is a fan of? It's hard for us not to all say Andrew's cards in the set here, so we'll gush.
I'm not
over
voting
your
for
cards.
myself.
But let's start with you, Andrew. What did you think of the overall art in the set, apart from your own, or even including your own? I want you to highlight some of the cards that you've done in the set too, because they are all gorgeous.
Well, thank you. I really love the art in the set, even though like I'm not a big horror fan. I think even if I hadn't done art in this set, I think I would have still been won over by some of the really gorgeous, illustrations in this set. Like I can think of I do love Valgavoth, like the original one. I like the second one. I like a lot of the really cool, like the glitch effects and how they've really how some artists have interpreted that. And I think that's been one of my favorite things, like during spoilers, is seeing how like other artists handled that kind of art direction, because like I handled it a specific way and it's cool to see everybody else's kind of like interpretation of it. And I would be lying if I didn't see a few of them and I was like, oh man, like I should have fucking done that, or like, oh, that would have been a really cool way to handle that. Like I think there was a green card, it's like voracious something. It's like one of the alternates arts with like a bunch of teeth, and then it's got like a kind of like an after image of it. I'm trying to find it so Chris can pull it up. But that one was really cool. I love the pseudo Pokemon cards we're getting with some of the like enduring, cards, and the sparkles and everything on the alternate arts.
Those new foil treatments look
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Like it's just so cool, and especially as somebody who grew up like on Pokemon, like I remember opening a pack of what was it? Was it Unstable, or was it no, Unfinity, that had the like Galaxy foils.
Mhm.
Those ones, like the first time I saw a Galaxy foil, because I didn't pay much attention to the set, I was like, oh my god, it's like a Pokemon card, and I was so much more like invested at that point. And I would say, like, from the side of things, being the artist and like my interpretation of things, I am most proud of my favorite art out of my three is Waltz of Rage.
Mhm.
That one is my favorite. And with all three of them, I really wanted to, I joke with a lot of people that have said, like, I wanted my first three illustrations for Magic to feel like a superhero entrance, like, like Iron Man, like flying down and just like, having that really cool landing.
Mhm.
So I really wanted my first like outing in Magic to be like, make an impact and have like, put my all into it. And so I really tried to do that with all three.
And you definitely stuck that landing, because these cards are gorgeous, and it's really easy to take your style and apply it to all of these Magic sets. But I think that you really shown here with especially your color palette being so vibrant the way that it is. It cuts through like a knife in this set for sure.
Thanks.
All right. Ariel, how about you? Any favorite art from the set?
I mean, I like the Waltz of Rage. I pulled it out earlier, and now I can't find it. It disappeared from my desk, and that's a little terrifying. But I I cannot get the image of giggling Skater Spike out of my head. Like, it will live there, and I will die, and it will still be there. And honestly, I'm mean, and my husband is afraid of dolls, so I love every doll in the set. I'll just be like, hey, look at this card. And he's like, no. Like, literally at PAX, when they revealed the dollhouse, I sent him a picture of it, and he was going to help me later that night with something. And he's like, well, I hope you have fun doing this on your own. He's straight up just like, no, thank you. So I don't know if he'll play this set at all, but... And just to have a throwback to my childhood of literally having this toy, living phone, like, I love it. I mean, I didn't actually read what it does, but I just like the art, and now I can read what it does. But I literally, who else had that toy phone as a child? I did.
All of us.
I'm glad it's
Probably at
gone
some
and it
point.
can't come to life. Yeah. So, but I think we kind of go in later talking about the more like different borders and whatnot, so I won't really go too into detail on that. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's probably a ton I like. I also wanted to highlight the lands. The lands are beautiful. Like, they all, like, how do you make a swamp that's in a house? Like, it's very creative, and the two color lands, they're all beautiful, and I'm very excited to like put them in the deck in a deck somewhere. I just love using full art lands for stuff, so I will find a spooky deck to put them in for sure. And yeah, I like the 13 or less life thing. That's funny. Very good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think the landscapes and the lands are incredibly interesting in this set too, because everything is inside. They all look like they're outside, but there's elements in the background that all remind you that you are still inside the house, which is very creepy, because the call always comes from inside the house on Duskmourn. Chase, what about you? Favorite arts from the set?
Yeah, so I noticed that two of my favorite arts are by the same artist, which I thought was kind of funny. So Josh Newton did two of my favorite arts. The first one is Oblivious Bookworm, and the reason why I
Mm.
love it is because it is so quintessentially 80s. It
Yeah.
is so 80s with the glasses, the headphones, the hair. It feels so like beautifully like something I would see on like one of like my 80s horror movies. I look at it and I feel like a joy with it that I think
Mhm.
is just really cool. Um I personally I think it's glorious. And the other art that he did that I love is the his take on Living Death, which is one of the cards that you can get in the Nightmare bundle. And the reason why I love it, again, quintessentially 80s, but it's a beautiful reference to Evil Dead, which I really like. You have the tape in her hands, you have the three little deadite people in the background, and the font for Living Death is actually the exact same font that they used for the Evil Dead title card on the movie posters. So that was really exciting for me because it looked so familiar, and I was like, that is so sick. That I loved that, and I thought it was like really cool. But I will be a really bad fan if I didn't say that the thing I love the most about Duskmourn in terms of art is that we got Tim Jacobus to come and do art for Duskmourn. I had hoped and prayed like a couple weeks before they revealed it that we would see it, and we did. And for those in chat who aren't aware, Tim Jacobus is the artist who did the original covers of the Goosebumps books. So it was really exciting to see that. He did 3 cards, Crypt Gas, Dam, and Exhume. I think my favorite might be Exhume. It just looks really cool. And I'm really hoping that we see a secret lair with his work
Oh, that'd be
because it
cool.
would make my heart actually soar. Goosebumps was like my first intro to horror point blank period ever. So this was like a really big like excitement like welcome moment for me that it was just a good crossing of the streams that just felt really good. So literally any of Jacobus's art and two of the Josh Newtons are just beautiful.
Yeah. The Jacobus art is so distinct and so speaks to our childhoods and the cover of the Goosebump books. They just are unmistakable at first glance. You know exactly who they are and where they came from, whether they be the book fair or the
Yeah,
library.
Scholastic
I
Book
was
Fair,
just about to
baby.
say, taking us back to the Scholastic Book Fair.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Uh, uh, Anna, how about you? Favorite arts from the set?
Okay, so I like kind of jumped to the gun and already mentioned one of my favorite arts was the extended art of the doll maker's shop.
Mhm.
I just loved it. It's so haunting. I love spooky dolls. I think it's fantastic. Ever since I was like little and in the Nutcracker and the idea of the dolls coming to life, I was like, oh, I love it. So I like that one. There's it's like I think her name is Arabella and she's like a creepy little doll. Love her. And then the flavor text is something like,
That one.
oh yeah, right here. Every night, Corey threw the unsettling doll away. Every morning, it was back on the shelf, its eyes following her every move. And I just think that's like, love it.
Mm.
So like that one really called to me. But like there's a flavor of artwork that I think every time I've looked at it, I've just been like, this is crazy. And I think there's like a few of them. Obviously, I love the double exposure. I think it's fantastic. I get it. But the one where they're like the creepy thing is reflected. So like there's one where it's reflected in her eye. There's another one where it's reflected off, I forget something they're holding, but like they previewed a few of them at PAX West, and then I've seen a few of them. I've got like one of them here, but I just think it's like this artwork is so it's just so creepy. This one, it's the Razorkin Needlehead.
There we
Mm.
go.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. All the ones where like you're looking at the person who's looking at the thing that's scaring them. I like all of these. I think they're so yeah, they're showing up on the screen. I think they're so cool.
Yeah.
Yes. That one too.
And this kind of shot is out of every horror movie too, where
Mhm.
you see the big bad reflected in something, some kind of glass, some kind of reflection or a silhouette that is so creepy and makes so much sense in this
I
set too.
love it.
Chase.
With those frames, I'm so glad you mentioned them because I wanted to, but I was like, I don't want to talk too long. But I love that you mentioned them because they're so great. And the first one that I saw the full art for was the one on screen, Doomsday Excruciator. And I saw it on like one of those Facebook art pages where they were, selling their art. And I loved it because those frames make me think of the movie poster for They Live, which is very much, a guy moving his sunglasses down and you see in the reflection of the glasses is the alien. And that's so cool. And also to tell a funny little story off of what Anna said about the doll and the flavor text. My mom tried to do a cute thing when I was a kid, but it scared the shit out of me. Was my grandmother made me a Raggedy Ann doll, like she made it, and then like I would wake up in the morning and it would be in different places around the house. Like it would be in the car seat, or it would be at the kitchen table, and she would be like, "Oh, like she got around and walked over there to like wait for you," and I'm like, "That's literally the most terrifying thing in the world. Why would you tell me that?"
No.
So. Nightmare.
I love it. And I love the creepy dolls. But I think my sister was more on your camp. We had like a doll in the bathroom that was like one of those like China dolls. Objectively, it looks kind of creepy. I thought she was the coolest thing. My sister was like, "We need to burn it. We need to like get this out of our bathroom and burn it."
Your sister and Tyler can go hang out in a house with no dolls in it. I have beautiful Russian dolls that I'm not allowed to have in my house because my husband is afraid of them. And I was going to use Raggedy Ann for a video. And so I had to like stuff her in a bag to send back to my mom's because my husband's like, I don't want to look at her.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But I think that, like, interestingly about this one too, like, yeah, the flavor text is super creepy because we find dolls scary. But I know when I was little, Toy Story was traumatizing because it introduced this idea that my stuffed animals and dolls could be mad at me for not playing with them. And this is something that never occurred to me before watching that movie. And then suddenly I had this fear that, like, I was abandoning the items that had given me the most comfort and that they resented me for it. And this is like a fear I still have. I think it's like I struggle to throw things out sometimes. I like have stuffed animals from childhood. I'm like, well, I can't get rid of this. Like it got me through like tough times as a tiny human. And so like that's actually like a legitimate fear that was terrifying to me as a child. And I think that like the prevalence of dolls in this set, it's like, yeah, that was my fear. I was scared.
My partner would relate to that because she has a piñata of Pikachu that she got when she was 5, and she cried because she didn't want to break it open, and so now she still has that piñata chew.
That Pikachu be mad at her for throwing it away.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
That's why it's
Toy
here.
Oh, fantastic. Clay, want to hear from you as well. Favorite art from the set?
So, we already addressed it. First off, 1, 2, 3, Schmandrew. I love the style. I, have more than a few Andrew's art pieces. I love everything that he makes. And real quick, talk about the struggle of your friend is a like official Magic artist, and it's 3 alt arts for 2 rares and a mythic. The difficulty is like I was like, oh man, these are gonna be so tough to get. But thankfully, with so many different treatments, I feel like the odds might be a little better.
Hopefully.
Because I don't know how those distributions go. But as far as like non-Schmandrew art, first off, Cathartic Parting, heartbreaking as the biggest Tameo fan, and that's just really upsetting. It's not okay.
Yeah.
Poor Nashi, but the idea of finding closure in the middle of this hell house is such a good story beat, and like going through that. So I love it, but I hate it. We were talking about like how like being capable about stepping through doors earlier. And so there's a card art, Enter the Enigma, which shows the Wanderer being freaked out about the door. Like this is somebody who for most of her life, like literally was jumping into unknown circumstances over and over and over again. But the idea of going through this door freaks her out. I love the way that they captured it. I love the presentation. And like the door feels funny, but also still Kamigawan. Like there's a kind of blend of the two themes. Brood Spinner, I think, is so funny and just like speaks like just like the absurdity of like horror style sometimes, and just like the big
Eyeballs.
googly eyes on the spider. That's kind of wrong. I love it. And then like you get, it's just the art's just adorable, but like in a really weird way.
Oh, the
And
tokens
then
have the googly eyes too.
yeah, the
Yeah.
Togetsu too. It's
He's
like
just a funky little dude.
yeah. The Of the fears, my favorite is Fear of Isolation, which is again just
Oh.
a really weird fucking dude.
Mm.
That one was one where I looked at it and I was like, "That's the coolest fucking shit!" Like
The
It's
flavor
so-
text
the
depresses
bird with
me.
the eye
Yeah,
in the
the-
mouth, like, oh,
I feel it.
The flavor text is like, oh yes, that's right. I have this fear because this resonates really deeply with it. And then so it's like normal arts. I think for the alternate arts, like I really love all of the endurance ones. Like I like their standard print. I like the Japanese showcase print of it. And then the double exposure art for like Nico, I think is my favorite of the double exposure ones. But I am slightly biased because I'm a giant Nico Harris stan. So, but and Ariel called out the basics, like the full art basics, as like somebody who loves full art basics. Love them, and I really kind of got a similar vibe of the old Nuka Penna. Like it's like not the same, but it kind of has the same like mirrored rising aesthetic that they did. Yeah,
approach.
like, and I really liked that.
Yeah, very, very cool. Love all of them. I'm a big fan of the double exposure arts for sure. I really like the double exposure of the Mind Skinner specifically because that thing doesn't look like it has a face at all. So for it to have a double exposure of what is zoomed in on what should be its face is very interesting. Like you can't really tell what its anatomy is, and it's makes it double disturbing, right? But it's like the portrait arts that we saw from Modern Horizons and we've seen in previous sets as well. These double exposures are very striking. They're very unique. They're great if you want them as a commander specifically. Like there are these treatments for legendary creatures, knowing you want these treatments for your commanders. But Clay, you touched on the point that there are a lot of treatments in this set. There are a lot of different frames in this set. There are a lot of alt arts in this set. And in fact, there are 7 different treatments for cards in this set, which is the most of any standard set we've seen before. So I want to ask our panelists here, do you have any favorite treatments? And is 7 different treatments, especially the ones being applied to all cards in the set, commons, uncommons, rares, and mythics, do we think that we're really getting to the point where there's an oversaturation of different arts and different treatments for things? So again, what are your favorites? Is 7 too many for a set? And Clay, why don't we start with you? How do you feel about this?
Real quick on that, when we're saying that, are we counting like the double exposure versus the textured finishes, which are like the other, like the same treatment or the same style, but instead of like the softer colors, it's the red and black one? Are we treating those as different print like treatments?
No, we're treating those as the same. We're talking different treatments like the impending doom treatments, the double exposure treatments, the TV set treatments, the static treatments. They're all different treatments, and there are 2 to 3 variations of every card in this set.
Sure, that's what I was just curious about though, just because like looking at how like Skyfall breaks it out, they like separate those two, so that's why I was like, I was just wondering about that. Maybe 7 is too many. I'm a known advocate for lots of different treatments, lots of different art styles. I love having different versions of Magic cards. It makes having cool art of Magic cards and different art of Magic cards more accessible. I started playing in 2014, and so like my first series of exposures to different treatments for Magic cards was like Kaladesh with the inventions, and then like the expeditions, right? Zendikar, and then there's the But basically, all of these were like super chases that were extremely expensive, and I was just like always going through Magic, just knowing I can't have those. Those are not things that I have access to. And so then, as we like get all of these different treatments for legendaries and all these different cards, like they're much more accessible. And so I think that's really cool. I know that there are issues that people have, especially with competitive play, that's different than being like super casual. Maybe 5 is like the max. Maybe there's a limit somewhere where it's not too draining. The double exposure is by far my favorite. And then I think that the Japanese showcases is like probably second. I don't know what the drop rate on those is versus like the other treatments. But yeah, those two would be my favorite.
Absolutely. All right. Chase, how about you? Favorite treatments in the set, and do we have way too many treatments in standard sets now?
I am always going to be a fan of more treatments because that means more easily accessible cards to people at the end of the day. It also means a little bit lower prices for people, which I also think is pretty great. I think my favorite is the double exposure. I like the lore behind it, just in general, the fun little history behind it. I also think they're really cool in general. I like them. I like the paranormal frames. I feel like a lot of people might not. Just again, it's like literally a giant TV. Again, I love that. I don't think. I think in this situation with the set, I wouldn't say 7 is too many because you have, for example, the mirror monster treatment is only applicable to, I think, maybe 5 or 6 cards. So it's not like a bunch of dozens of cards. For the lurking evil treatments, I think maybe 12 or 13 cards that have that treatment. I will say that is the treatment that I find to be the most frustrating. Because while there are some examples that are very obvious, for example, Oblivious Bookworm has a lurking evil treatment that's actually very easy to pinpoint. There are quite a few that are very difficult to pinpoint. One of them being Norin, the new Norin. I did not notice it. I did not know at all, but he has a lurking evil treatment, and you're probably going, well, Chase, it's the little dude in the hallway in the background. No, if you look up into the corner to the left, there's just this difference is a tiny little black hand that's doing that, and you can barely tell, and it's such a slight difference, and I did not notice. And so I think, like, in terms of like treatments are being too much, I don't think they're too much, but when you have a treatment like lurking evil one where the treatment is so slight, it kind of reminds me of those Teferi treatments we had where it was like different time cycles and you couldn't tell the difference between any of them. And if you say you can't tell the difference, then like you're lying. I'm so sorry, because like how in the world? But yeah, that one to me I think is the most annoying one. There's a fly flying around here, it's bothering the hell out of me. But all in all, paranormal frame, love. I love the double exposure frame. Lurking evil one, I could leave that one.
Right on.
God, get out of here.
Ariel, how about you? What do you think about all of these different treatments? Do you have any favorites, and do we have too many of them?
I think what Chase said about sort of making them more accessible, it really rang true with me, because I can imagine for a collector it's really annoying, but that's sort of like a small pool of people anyway. So for someone like me who wants to just put the prettiest things in my deck, it makes it a lot easier because there's a lot of options and they won't be super expensive, probably, except for the Japanese showcase. Those are probably going to be very expensive. But I like that there's just a lot of options that I can pick up. And yeah, I like the idea of the lurking shadow, but I think some of them weren't executed very well when it came to like fitting it in the frame of the card. I'm sure that art that's up right now of Norin looks great without the frame, and you can see more of the monster, but once you put the frame of the magic card on it, it really takes away from it. And I am a fan of the, what's it called, the paranormal? Is that what you called it? The TV.
Yeah.
I just like all the vibrant colors, and I just really, they look really good in foil too. And I just, big throwback to sort of that like fun like 80s vibes and old VHSs, and I super like that. But I'm just like full of nostalgia. So, and I have to point out that while the double exposures all are very cool and invoke a lot of emotion, the Jolly Balloon Man just looks like he's taking a photo for his senior year, and he's got like his cat, you know, on one side and his head on the other side. That's what I think of when I look at the Jolly Balloon Man, is a really bad senior photo. But the rest
Love
of them are
him.
great.
Would.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I just had to point that out. But I hope all of you can't unsee that now. Okay.
Amazing.
It's his senior photo.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh my god, that's so good.
Awesome. Anna, what do you think? What's your favorite treatment, and is this too much for a set?
Okay, so I think my gut for favorite treatment is the double exposure. And so I think that is like reoccurring for all of us, saying, like, I think it's just so striking. I was also a huge fan of the portrait art that we saw before. And I even like cosplayed Tessa Karlov's like portrait art. And I love that. I feel like it's really striking and cool, especially for your commanders. So I think that's my favorite. But I'll have to say, I got to see the I think it was a fractured foil at PAX, at like PAX West. I got to like look at it, and I'm like desperate for one. They're so pretty. I would love to open one. I don't think I'll ever like purchase a single because they're probably going to be expensive, but they're so pretty. I never got one of the Galaxy foils for Infinity, but I wanted one. So I think I just love that. They're so pretty. They're so fun. You know, I don't feel like there's too many different art treatments, but I think I could hear the argument that if you're playing in a competitive event and you're going off of the picture to try to recognize what the card does, that could be like a stressful situation. I was vending a booth, so I was like helping sell cards at MagicCon Amsterdam, and one of the shops that we were kind of working with that was at the booth I was helping at, they were selling all of the cards in Chinese, and I realized that I could still recognize the cards by the artwork, but it was tougher when there were more artwork flavors. So I do see that argument. But for me personally, I want all the artwork. I think that half the fun of like making your commander decks is personalizing it. I think that Commander is one of those formats where your deck can really be your own. And like the different artwork that you pick, the choices, the pet cards, like the more artwork we have, like the more options, the more creative like ways it can fit into your deck and your style. Also, I'm a little squeamish, and some of the cards are really creepy. Like I love that balloon guy card. I'm like, I need to build a commander deck, but his original artwork, like absolutely not. I could not stare at that for a whole game. Nope, 0 out of 10. But like the altar, like the double exposure art, like yeah, I could build that deck. So I think I love it, especially in this type of set. I feel like they're able to reference so many different flavors of horror because of these different art styles, and I'm not sure we could have gotten it. Now I do have to weigh in my 2 cents piece. I hear that like it's kind of hard to see the lurking evil, but I think that's the coolest thing ever. I frequently think that like I love horror movies, but when I'm watching them, I'm often more scared when it's just the question of what the threat is. In things like, I don't know, like The Conjuring, like in all those, like I'm more freaked out before I see it. My brain can freak me out even beforehand. So I love the idea that it's lurking in the corner and you might see it, but I'm also appreciate that they have different numbers on the bottom. So like they have different set numbers, so you can't like absolutely terrify yourself. Like you can be like, oh yeah, there it is. But I think that's really cool. I think it's a fun touch. I think it's creepy. I like the idea of it. And the few that I've seen, I thought were pretty cool. But I do think maybe it would have been nice to have them be a little more obvious, maybe. But I think it's epic. Like there's the one where them like running down the hallway and there's like the small gnome or something in the doorway. You're like, oh, that's kind of creepy. And then there's a creepy monster hanging from the ceiling. Like I think that's epic. I think it's fun. It's such a cool, like clever design.
Love it. Yeah. A lot of them are really creepy, and a lot of them you can really tell the thing in the picture that's there or not there, which I think those are cool to see side by side for sure.
Yeah. I will say one that I did not notice until recently. Apparently, Meat Hook Massacre 2, the regular art, is a lurking evil art, and I didn't notice. It's like
Yeah.
it's just big blob in the front. Like you can tell, but like there's some that you can't tell whatsoever, and then there's some that are so amazing. Like the Oblivious Bookworm one is my favorite lurking evil treatment because of how like eerie and crooked it looks.
Mhm.
But I didn't notice him in the Meat Hook Massacre art until I was like searching for it, and I was like, "There's a dude there."
I hate its neck. Like
I
hate
love
the
its
long,
neck.
spindly neck. Like
He just wants to get a good look at you.
ugh.
He's looking for beans, dude.
It makes me think of that. I think it's a Beetlejuice character that has the really tiny head and the like
Yeah,
big
Bob.
suit. I had to skip past all those TikTok ads whenever they come up because it creeps me out. I don't like it. And this little thing in Meat Hook Massacre 2 just makes me think of that without the suit. And I just no.
So Andrew, on that point, what is your favorite treatment? And is 7 different treatments in the set too much?
I think I kind of agree with what was said. I think Chase said about the Teferi that was like you couldn't figure out what was what. I think it would be too many if like they did every card that had a different treatment, like in like 3 or 4 different treatments. I think that would be too much. I think they've kind of figured out the trick, which is okay, we can do like one different treatment for, you know, these cards. And I like that they're kind of looking at it through kind of this lens of, especially with this set, is like, oh, you know, it's like an 80s, 90s horror movie trope, very like kind of cheesy, but also just really unsettling. And so I feel like they really ran the full gamut of like, picking some really iconic visual tropes and went with those. And I think it worked really well because the set is basically that without, you know, the different treatments. I think the treatments that I like the most, I do like the double exposure ones because I like the complementary color, you know, color scheme that they've been doing with those and how it's like, oh, purple and yellow. And like they had the one, you know, this one that's pink and green. Like I love that. And so I really dig that. I also appreciate like what Anna said, where some of these ones, I feel like the regular art is too spooky for me. But if I ever built them or like had to put them in a deck, I'd be like, I need the double exposure because the other one's going to scare me. But I think for me, and it's not because I did the art for like the haunted frame ones, it's because my friend Dalton is like the main designer that like designed most of like that frame. And so for me, it was really cool to be able to have like my first Magic cards be cards that were in a frame he designed.
Nice. Very, very cool. All right. Chase, something to add?
Very small point, but before your card was previewed
Mhm.
and they showed off the paranormal frame, as soon as they showed off Chainsaw, I was like,
Yeah.
I already know what frame your art's gonna be in. I could like tell like the vibe instantly. So I was like really
Yeah.
excited to see what it was.
Yeah, the chainsaw one is so gnarly.
Yeah, whoever
Like-
beat me for that art, by the way, I hate you. I wanted that sketch and you took that from me.
Oh,
Yeah, the distortion on some of these paranormal frames is like straight out of warped VHS
Mhm.
cassette, and it's great. Like I can see this exact chainsaw image be paused
yeah.
on my screen as I
Ooh,
cower
yeah.
behind the couch.
Yeah.
It's straight out of my childhood.
As you're
that's for
sitting
sure.
on the stairs, like watching, your parents are actually watching the movie, and you're
Yeah.
like,
Through
you're
like
like,
the
I'm not supposed to
banister.
be here. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
Exactly. All right. So, just a final reminder for everybody out in chat. We're going to do a last round of questions, just about everybody's favorite cards from the set and anything that they want to brew with coming up. So this is your last chance to get any questions in for the Q&A and any final donations in as well before we do our draw. Remember, hit Command Donate in chat, get those donations in, and we will choose some lucky winners soon. So we'll wrap up for tonight, everyone, by asking, do you have any favorite cards from the set? Is there anything that you're excited to build new decks around? Is there anything that's going to slot into existing decks? Or just overall, what are some of your favorites? So why don't we kick off with Ariel? Ariel, any favorites from the set?
Oh gosh. There's like so many. And like I said, the one that just keeps living rent free in my house is Giggling Skitter Spike. I can't get it out of there. It's a 1/1 indestructible, and like you can make it monstrous. That's amazing. I just want it in everything. And then I'm like literally scrolling through like all of the art very quickly right now just to be like, okay, is there anything else? And like but as far as like at least like I haven't started necessarily brewing anything because I'm not gonna lie, I'm a terrible deck brewer. I absolutely like to modify things that people have already posted. I'm good at doing that. But so I really want to make a doll toy deck. Like
Nice.
I don't know how to do it yet, but I want to do it. Yeah, okay, can we do it together? Can you help me? I want to do it. And my husband will never play with me, but that's fine. And I think, God, I'm also just obsessed with the alternate or like the special guest art for Collected Company. I just it shows off Tyvar's fanny pack is perfect. I can now put it in my shirtless folks deck, which is even better. And there's like a lot of emotion in the art. Like you feel scared even though you want to laugh at Tyvar because he's got a fanny pack. But you're scared. You can just feel the emotion coming out of this card, and it's a great card. So and I like that they kind of adapted it, and I feel like some people would disagree with me, but I would not mind if they just reprinted Collected Company as a special guest in like every set, because I feel like it gives a really good chance to showcase whoever the main characters are in that plane or in that story, whatever is going on. I think I answered all your questions. I can't remember.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
No, fantastic picks there. Definitely need to brew an Arabella deck. Another creepy dolls specifically. Anna Margaret, sounds like you're on that train too. Yeah. So what are your favorite cards?
Dolls, all the creepy dolls. I forgot I was muted. My dogs were barking like crazy. I was like, oh, I don't want to disrupt the scream. But no, Arabella for sure.
Yeah. Any other favorite cards from the set?
Yeah, there's another toy. I guess I have a type. There's the Marvin Murderous Mimic. Ah, yes.
That's one that's too scary for me. I would have to have the alt art. Like
the double exposure that Chase is holding
I
up.
can't.
That one. Oh my gosh.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I love the idea of this. Like the doll mimicking, I think is really thematic. I think it's also really interesting mechanically, I think the cards are interesting. I'm super into it. I also, one of my favorite pet decks is my Satoru deck, my ninja deck. So I'm very excited for Kaito, the planeswalker that can also be a creature. So basically it's Kaito Bane of Nightmares. And so I'm obsessed with this planeswalker ninjutsu. So it has ninjutsu 1 blue black, return an unblocked attacker you controlled a hand, put this card into the battlefield from your hand tapped and attacking. And so during your turn, as long as he has 1 or more loyalty counters, he's a 3/4 ninja creature. I love this mechanic. I love this idea. I can't wait to put it in my ninja deck. And so I was very excited when I saw that card. And I love that artwork that's up right now, like the double exposure in particular is so sick.
I love that one. That one might be my favorite double exposure.
It might be mine too. I like saw this card previewed and was like, yep, that's going straight in my deck. So I think that one, and then yeah, Marvin Murderous Mimic and Arabella. And I also called out the Dollhouse shop earlier, or like the doll maker, whatever it's called, doll maker shop. So I think I kind of already like babbled about all the cards that caught my eye so far. Dolls, toys, ninjas.
Fantastic. All right, Andrew, how about you? Favorite cards from the set? Anything you're looking to brew, build, or include in decks?
Absolutely. I was just making a list. I'm so glad you didn't pick me to go first because I was like, I need to like find the cards.
Ariel inspired me. I was like, yeah, what'd she say?
Yeah. The enduring cycle I really like because I just built a Wild Seer Scouring Maw Auras deck. Okay. And I really love the idea of creatures that when they die, they come back and they're still functional. and their enchantments, so they continue to add to my enchantment count and my cards that care about other enchantments being on the battlefield. I love the card Come Back Wrong. Effects like that are so funny to me, and just unexpected silly ways to like take your opponent's creature, like mess with your opponent's creature, like not forever, but in a way that they weren't expecting, is one of my favorite things in Magic. Like one of my favorite cards ever will be Exchange of Words from Unfinity, because nobody ever expects it, and then you're like, cool, your commander's effects are now over there, and your commander now has a Birds of Paradise effect on it. And it's just so funny to watch people have to like figure out a way to like, you know, get rid of their commander so they can replay it, or find a way out of it, or get rid of, you know, Exchange of Words. And it's always a fun time. So I feel like Come Back Wrong definitely, you know, hits that. I love Unwanted Remake, just for one, the card, it's like the name, the art, you know, more cheap removal in white. We love to see it. Fear of Missing Out, also enchantment deck. Another one of those fear cards that I feel like just perfectly sums up the idea of like, oh, you know, it gets to attack on the first time, but guess what? It has to miss out on the second attack. And I love that. And that was something that just hit me really good, like when I read the card. And then Leyline of Mutation. I love 5-color decks. One of my favorite decks right now is a Niv Mizzet Guild Pack deck. And it's a combat damage triggers deck. And I just love like weird 5-color matters cards. I don't think this has a home in that deck, but it's like one of those cards that almost makes me want to build a deck that's like Fist of Suns, this, and that Joda, like, and just all three of those.
Love it.
And then the last card I would say is Overlord of the Haunt Woods. That one I really want to try out in my new enchantment deck. So that would be the cards that I really want to pick up. And I mean, I do want to pick up a Meat Hook Massacre too, because I never got a regular one. And so one, I think it's funny that much like some movies that have come out in recent years, I'm seeing, you know, the sequel instead of the original then the sequel. So I it would be cool to pull one, even if it's not, you know, my art, just so that I have one, because I never owned the original one.
Love it. Are they sending you artist proofs of your cards?
Eventually, I don't know when those will show up. I've had a few people, I'm glad you asked that question, because a few people have emailed me. And so if you're one of those people who's interested in artist proofs, like I will post about it when I get them. And I'm also going to be working with Donnie to do my artist proofs and kind of manage my artist proofs. He does that for a bunch of other Magic artists.
Nice.
So when he announces it, that's when you know, we're off the ground and going.
Absolutely. We'll be keeping a close eye on your Twitter for any announcements about it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Chase, how about you? Any favorite cards from the set? Anything you're looking to build around?
Yes, I'm about to be the most annoying person ever. So we're gonna rattle off quite a few cards. I love Haunted Screen. I think the flavor of that is just so fun. The fact that it's in black and white and you have to pay life to give you color. So literally just like RGB, you know, for color of the screen. I think that's so sick. I think the flavor of that's super cute. I also died when I saw Unidentified Hover Ship and Fear of Abduction. Aliens in Magic. We have the little green men, the little gray aliens with the stereotypical little face. I saw that, I died. I was like, finally, we're getting into the real shit. And it kills me and I love it and it's stupid. I also really just like oh god, I like Silent Hall Creeper because I'm pretty sure he's the weird little lurking evil guy and all the lurking evil treatments. He's just the funky little dude that I think is really cool.
That's another card I need to get.
I think it's just so sick. I also like Cursed Recording. It's a card I will never play. It's not my steez, but it's an amazing Ring reference that I think is super hysterical, and I just, it makes me so happy. And in terms of if I'm wanting to build something, I have finished it. I have a deck right here. It's complete. I've been playtesting it. It's awesome. It's the Lord of Pain. It's from the
So good.
pre-con. It's the secondary commander. It's not the face commander, but I love it. This deck is amazing. I think the Lord of Pain is so fun. And I've just been rocking with that, and I just think it's super cool. I think that while the plane didn't meet my desires of flavor, which, let's be honest, I think my desires are way too unconventional for a Magic plane to ever reach. So already I understand what I want. Never going to be fully achieved. I think they did such a good job with it, integrating some really cool pieces of horror in the set that you can identify, like even like Ghost Vacuum. I'm like, Ghostbusters, yay! I just thought it was really cool.
Absolutely. I can say firsthand, Lord of Pain is very, very good and very, very cool and makes games go very, very fast.
Yeah, he's go burr. He's go burr so quick.
Absolutely. This guy and Descent into Avernus are my two. The game is going to end. Yes.
It's in the deck.
Yeah.
Oh, look, there it is.
exactly.
I just pulled it. Look at it. It was meant to be.
Perfect. Yeah, recorded a bunch of gameplay for this deck just recently, and it is wild. It is fantastic. Clay, how about you? Any favorite cards from the set and anything you're looking to build?
Yeah.
Sorry about the beep. That was my insulin pump was very mad at me because apparently it tried to warn me my blood sugar was high and I did not hear it initially. And then it gets really dramatic if I don't do anything right away.
No, it's okay. With my earbuds, it sounded very locational to my right. And I was just like, didn't know what could have been in my office that was like making that sound.
That's funny.
So I think Ariel mentioned the special guests, and I had forgotten to even think about them before when I was thinking about this. And speaking about enchantments, the Hallowed Haunting printing in the special guest for this set, awesome. Love that. Love Hallowed Haunting as a card. Definitely going to be getting that for whatever enchantment-based decks I end up doing. Gremlin Tamer is one of the cards that can go infinite with Enchanted Evening that I referenced earlier. I think it's really funny that in like the master, like the big spread, Gremlin Tamer is next to Fear of Going Infinite. Like Fear of Going Infinite is the card next to it.
That is very funny.
That's really funny in the card gallery. And then I'm planning on building Nico Eris as now that I finally have a like creature equivalent of them. And so like now instead of doing a rule 0 deck, I can actually do just like a traditional commander deck. And I kind of had the idea already, and then I saw Dark Pact Cosplay talk about it on Twitter about basically making a deck of like clone effects, blink effects, in order to just play with my opponent's best creatures. And you have this idea of like, you did this to you, I can reset them if better things come out. Like you get to do like enchantress shenanigans as well because of like the shard tokens and stuff.
It's like a mirror house.
Yeah, it is. So it's kind of like a deck of mirrors, and then like I made the joke earlier or on Twitter about having both versions, the double exposure and then this textured one, in order to show the pod when it gets scary. Of like you've got the like soft yellow and purple one that's like really nice and they look really like calm, and then there's this one and it's like nope,
yeah,
shit has gotten real. Just like have them in a, like a sleeve and then you flip it.
Clay, this is for you. My LGS pulled the textured Nico. If you want me to help facilitate something, let me know if you're interested in it, because I pulled the textured Nico Light of Hope card. I wasn't sure if you were interested, but it's the cheapest of the textured ones. If you're vibing.
Oh, you're muted.
I can't hear you, but I'm sure it's
I
yes.
will. Yeah, I will be in touch.
Cool, because I know those are really hard to come by, and if you want to build Nico, I would love to give that.
I appreciate that very much, and I will be we'll talk about that.
Amazing. And just to wrap up some of my favorite cards, I love Hedge Shredder. I think it is a fantastic card. Very, very good. Goes in a lot of decks.
That art is good too.
And yeah, art is very, very good on it as well. This version, the paranormal frame in foil as well, looks incredible. There's a lot of depth and 3D to it, which is a lot of fun. I am a big fan of Giggling Skitterspike as well. Yeah, not only is it a creepy doll, funked up little dude, but it's a colorless source of damage to each opponent, which is very rare in this game. I think that there are like 3 or 4 that don't have to do with hand sizes. So it's a good one if you're looking for, say, direct damage in blue for whatever reason. And I really like Split Up. Split Up is a great shapeable 3-mana board wipe, which I think goes in a lot of decks and is a great way for you to just blow up all of your opponent's stuff and none of yours in white, which is real good, real cool. It's a lot like the what was it? The Don't Move card from Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Like that one's a really good one as well. But I like the whole tap versus untapped leanings for white here. Yeah, see, destroy all tapped creatures. Yeah, real good. If a creature becomes tapped, destroy it. Yeah, so real good stuff. A lot of great cards in the set for sure. So everyone, we're going to let everybody once again share who you are and where we can find you, and then we're going to announce our draw winners. And stick around, everyone, because we're going to go raid our friend Veggie Wagon as well. So stick around. Once again, we'll go around. Thank you, everyone, for coming out today. Thank you, everyone in the audience. And thank you to all of our panelists. Air Bubbles, why don't you let us know once again who you are and where we can find you?
Hi, so I'm Ariel. I go by Air Bubbles Cosplay on the internet. So you can find me everywhere under Air Bubbles. I'm actually literally going to be streaming the early access event for Duskmourn in like an hour on my own channel under Air Bubbles Cosplay. I forgot what else I was supposed to say.
Thank you very much for coming out. We appreciate having you.
I am also going to be in MagicCon Vegas. I thought I would mention that as well. I'm in the cosplay contest at the championship, whatever it's called. I'm one of the champions. I don't know what I'm trying to say. So I'm like really stressed out. I'm panic building a lot of stuff right now, but yeah.
Very cool. Thank you for coming out. It's been great having you, and we'll definitely have to have you back as well. Anna, how about you let us know who you are and where we can find you?
Hi, I'm Anna Margaret. You can find me everywhere on the internet at It's Anna Margaret. I make nerdy lifestyle content. I love to talk about my adventures and my favorite fandoms. And so you can find, I have a fun Duskmourn YouTube video coming out tomorrow that puts a lot of math into it. I'm obsessed with the new Zimone card. And so I did a lot of work on Blender and had a lot of fun with that. I'm so excited to see what Ariel creates for the cosplay contest. For anybody watching who is interested, applications to submit for the cosplay contest are still open. And so you can still apply to be a part of the cosplay contest. Those are open for a few more days. So if you're on the fence, definitely do it. I am so excited. I'll be co-hosting and judging the cosplay contest. So if you are interested, definitely sign up. I'm so excited to see all the beautiful creations that talented people in this community make. So if you haven't signed up, do it now. You still have some time.
Amazing. Thank you for joining us tonight. We will definitely, again, have you out for another one of these. Andrew, why don't you let everybody know who you are and where we can find you and your art?
Yeah, so I'm Andrew or Schmandrew Art online. I just dropped a link to my website there. I will eventually have artist proofs available. I don't know when that will be. So if you're interested in that, definitely give me a follow on Twitter and Instagram, or you can sign up for my email newsletter on my website. In addition to those things, I also make playmats of my own original art. I will have playmats of my Magic stuff. I've got token packs that I just remembered to turn back on my website, so you can get those. I'll have this shirt available very soon. I just got these in. I've been doing them as pre-orders at Gen Con and Dragon Con, and I just sent out an email. Clay probably got one of them earlier today that they showed up this week much earlier than I planned. So now I have to panic and take product shots and all that fun stuff earlier than I thought. And I too will be at MagicCon Vegas, like I said earlier. Definitely come by and say hi in the artist section. I might be a little like out of my element because it is my first MagicCon as an artist, so that's going to be really cool and probably a little overwhelming. But yeah, that'll probably hit me when I get there more so than before I get there. So if you see me happy crying at all, just know that it's probably because I'm like, oh my God, I'm here. So
amazing,
yeah.
amazing. We will be looking forward to seeing you there for sure. Well, thanks for joining us once again. Andrew, Chase, why don't you let us know who you are and where we can find you?
Yeah, my name is Chase, also known as Manacurves. I make this fly. I'm going to murder it. I make Commander content on my Twitch channel. I also have a YouTube series I just started where I explain the plots of horror movies through the lens of magic cards because I think it's really nifty and it's weird and I like it. So you should give that a check out. That's on my YouTube channel at Manacurves. I will also be in MagicCon Vegas as well, doing whatever chases do in Vegas. So you should keep your eyes peeled for me there. I'll be running around like a moron. So it'll be really fun.
Amazing, amazing. Definitely check out Chase's stuff on YouTube. And Clay, once again, why don't you let everybody know who you are and where we can find you?
Yeah, hi again, friends. My name is Clay or Claybee. I'm the C&C representative that always sits on of these panels that we do, along with Chris and our friends in the community. I want to thank everybody coming, joining us, donating their time, and Chris and Andy, who are on the back end, who make all of this possible. They do the display images, the bios, the website that we do this from. And thank you to everybody who came out and joined us, the raiders and everybody who's donated and taken part in it. It's been a lot of fun.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you as always. And folks, I am Chris and I am your Commander Mechanic. Always an honor to host these roundtables for every Magic set. We do have a special announcement in that we're going to be doing more of these roundtables, not just for Magic. Coming up in November 6th at 9 p.m. Eastern, we will be doing the Tabletop RPG Game Masters Roundtable coming up soon. So keep an eye out for more announcements on the cast, and we will hopefully see everybody there too. Before we send it over to Veggie Wagon for a raid, I do want to announce our winners. The winner of our Infinite Tokens prize pack is Joel Leosh Pies. Congratulations to our friend Joel for that. Our first Commander Precon goes to Soren and Vigo. Congratulations. And our second Commander Precon goes to Charred Spark. Thank you for your donations, everyone. If you do want to donate in the future, you can always check out the links that we have available. You don't just have to donate on roundtable nights, but we do support great causes around here. Look forward to the next roundtable coming up in November. Thank you once again to everybody who has shown up, watched, and donated. And thank you very much to our panelists. I hope everybody has a great night. And let's send the love over to Veggie. Take care, everyone.